Welcome to the deep dive. If you're learning English and maybe sometimes feel like you're not quite moving forward as fast as you'd like.
Or maybe just stuck.
Yes, stuck in a rut. Well, know this. You're definitely not alone.
Oh.
It's a journey, right? And it has its bumps.
Mhm.
And that's really what we're digging into today.
That's right. Think of this as, well, your personal strategy session. For tackling those English learning challenges, we've looked at some key materials
Right.
to sort of pinpoint the most common roadblocks. And more importantly, we're bringing you some really effective ways, hopefully, to get past them.
Exactly. So we're going to focus on three main areas where learners often, hit a wall. First up, we'll unpack what happens when vocabulary just starts to feel overwhelming.
You're overload, yeah.
Then we'll tackle that often tricky world of listening comprehension.
Always a big one.
And finally, we'll look at how to build real, lasting speaking confidence. So our mission today, it's pretty simple. Arm you with practical insights so you can keep progressing in your English journey, feeling, well, focused and in control.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's jump in with something I think many of us can relate to. Vocabulary overload.
Yeah.
It's that feeling when you just see so many new words, it's hard to keep track of any of them, really.
It really is like facing a tidal wave, isn't it? Just words coming at you. Our sources define overload pretty simply, actually. Just too much of something.
Simple enough.
And you might recognize the feeling in the example they give. I had a vocabulary overload after reading that article.
Oh, definitely felt that.
But what's interesting here, I think, is understanding why it happens, how our brains actually, process new info. Trying to absorb too much at once, often counterproductive.
Okay, so if just cramming endless lists isn't the way, what is? What's a smarter way to build vocabulary?
Well, the materials we looked at really stress a kind of less is more approach.
Less is more.
Yeah. Instead of trying to memorize like dozens of words every day, focusing on a smaller, more manageable number, say 5 to 10 new words, that can be far more effective.
Right.
Long term.
5 to 10. That feels doable.
Absolutely. And the key isn't just seeing those words. It's about actively engaging with them.
Engaging. How so?
Well, think of it like this.
Yeah.
Your brain needs to build like strong connections to these new words, right?
Okay.
So as our sources highlight, this means actively using them.
Oh.
Drafting your own sentences, maybe physically writing them down, saying them out loud, this kind of multi-sensory repetition, it really reinforces those pathways in your brain.
Multi-sensory. I like that.
And what really stands out is how personalizing it makes the learning stick,
That makes perfect sense. Actually, the sources give some concrete examples, like frustrated.
Okay.
Instead of just reading the definition, you could think about a time you actually felt frustrated and say, maybe out loud, I feel frustrated when I forget words I've learned.
Right, making it real for you.
Or with progress. You could write in your journal, maybe, I'm making slow but steady progress in English, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's about making it relevant to your experience.
Exactly. And if you think about the bigger picture, like memory and learning, it's about moving beyond just recognizing a word.
Right.
To actually being able to pull it out and use it spontaneously.
That's the goal.
Maybe try weaving these new words into your daily thoughts, your internal monologue, even just describing what you're doing using 1 or 2 new words. It helps solidify them in your active vocabulary.
Okay, that's a really helpful shift in perspective, moving beyond just lists. Now, let's tackle something else that often trips learners up, even when their reading is pretty strong.
Ah, yes. Listening comprehension.
It can be so frustrating, can it? You read an English text easily, but then you try to understand native speakers talking at, well, what feels like lightning speed.
It is a very common hurdle.
Yeah.
A really common one. And there are some clear reasons for it. Our sources point to a few key things. Native speakers often talk fast. That's one.
Yeah.
They use slang, colloquial language.
Yeah.
Stuff you might not see written down much.
True.
And maybe the biggest one, they use connected speech. Where words kind of blend together.
Yeah, like what you doing instead of What are you doing?
Exactly. And that makes it really difficult sometimes to distinguish individual sounds. It's fascinating, too, how rhythm and intonation can totally change how you perceive words you actually know.
It really is like they're speaking a different language sometimes.
Mm.
You look at a transcript later and think, wait, I know all these words?
Right.
The source defines comprehension simply as understanding, and the example sentence, listening comprehension is my biggest challenge. I bet that resonates with a lot of you listening.
I'm sure it does.
So where do we even begin to untangle that knot? How do we get better at it?
Well, one of the most effective starting points, actually suggested in the sources, is to immerse yourself in English spoken,
Ah,
slowly and clearly.
okay. Start slow.
Yeah. Think about the narration in some language learning materials themselves,
Hmm.
like this deep dive, hopefully. The pace is often deliberately measured.
Right. To help understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It lets your ear get used to the sounds, the intonation patterns, without the extra challenge of super fast delivery.
That's a great point. And building on that, another really practical tip is using subtitles smartly. When you're watching videos or shows,
Oh, yeah. Subtitles are key at the start.
the initial goal is just to create that bridge, right? Between the spoken word and the written form, you might know better.
Hmm.
Then, as you feel a bit more comfortable, maybe try watching without them. Gradually wean yourself off, train your ear directly.
Precisely. And consider this too. Listen to the same audio multiple times.
Repetition.
Yeah. The first time, just focus on getting the main idea, the overall topic.
Huh.
Second time, maybe try to pick out specific words or phrases you missed.
Ah, okay. Listening with different goals each time.
Exactly. And what's really important to remember here is it's okay if you don't understand everything right away.
That's a relief.
Seriously. Our sources suggest aiming for maybe 70% comprehension initially. That's a realistic and frankly encouraging benchmark. Don't let chasing 100% understanding paralyze you.
That's really liberating, actually. It takes away that immense pressure of needing to catch every single word. Okay, good advice. Let's move on to our final area, which for many, I think, can be the most daunting, speaking confidence.
Ah, the big one.
You might have a decent grasp of grammar, your vocabulary, but that leap to actually opening your mouth and speaking, it can feel enormous.
It really can. And that reluctance often boils down to, well, fear, doesn't it?
Fear of what, usually?
Fear of making mistakes, fear of sounding awkward or silly.
Yeah, the sounding silly fear is powerful.
Mm-hmm. Our sources define confidence simply as and belief in yourself. And the example sentence, I lack confidence when I speak English, it really highlights that internal barrier so many learners face.
That internal voice.
Exactly. But what's crucial to get is that this belief, it's something you can actively cultivate. You can build it.
Okay, so how? How do we start building that self-belief in our speaking?
Well, one surprisingly effective tip from materials is to practice talking to yourself in English.
Talking to yourself. Really?
Yeah. It might feel a bit odd at first, I grant you, but just narrating your daily activities.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm making coffee now. Now I'm sitting down. Stuff like that. It's incredibly helpful. It's a completely low pressure environment. You can experiment with forming sentences, get comfortable just hearing your own voice speaking English. No judgment.
Okay, I can see that. A private practice space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic starting point. Another powerful tool, using voice recording apps on your phone.
Ah, okay. Recording yourself.
Yeah. This gives you the chance to practice speaking, maybe on different topics.
Yeah.
Then listen back objectively.
Ooh, that might be tough, listening back.
It can be, but it lets you identify areas where maybe you want to improve your pronunciation or your phrasing. It's private self-correction. You get familiar with how you actually sound in English.
Right. Getting over the cringe factor, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And then, of course, the more you actually speak with other people, the more your confidence will naturally grow.
Makes sense.
The sources really encourage seeking out speaking clubs or language exchange partners, whether that's online or in person.
That first step might feel nerve-wracking, though. Joining a club or finding a partner.
It definitely can be. But that experience of real communication, it's invaluable. It really is.
Okay. So push through the initial nerves.
Absolutely. And here's a really crucial mindset shift. You need to reframe your perspective on mistakes.
How so?
They are not failures. They're
Mm.
they're vital feedback, part of the learning process.
Mistakes as feedback. Okay.
Every single time you speak, even if it's not perfect grammatically, you are actively engaging with the language.
Yeah.
You're strengthening your ability to express yourself.
So focus on getting the message across.
Yes, especially in the beginning. Prioritize communication over absolute grammatical accuracy. That comes later with more practice.
Those are some really encouraging insights. Takes the pressure off perfection.
It should.
Now, before we wrap up, the materials we explored also offered some excellent sort of overarching principles for successful language learning in general.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
These are more like the foundational habits,
Mm.
the things that lead to sustained progress over time.
Okay, like what?
Well, the first key one is consistency over intensity.
Consistency over intensity.
Short, regular study sessions, maybe just 20 minutes a day, they tend to yield much better results than trying to cram for, say, 3 hours once a week.
Ah, the marathon versus sprint idea.
Exactly. It's about building a daily rhythm with the language, making it a habit.
That makes total sense. It's much easier to keep momentum with small daily goals.
Right.
What else?
Another tip that really resonated is the importance of celebrating small wins.
Small wins. Okay. Like what?
Like, did you finally understand that tricky phrase in a song you like?
Hmm.
Did you successfully manage to order something in English at a cafe?
Yeah. Those moments feel good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Acknowledge them. Appreciate those moments of progress. They really fuel your motivation to keep going.
It's so easy to focus only on what you can't do yet, isn't it?
It really is. So consciously recognizing how far you've come is incredibly powerful. And to keep that learning engine running, our sources also emphasize staying curious.
Staying curious.
Yeah. Integrate your hobbies, your interests with your English learning.
Oh, I like that.
Love cooking? Find English recipes online. Enjoy video games. Try playing one in English.
Ah, so you're learning without it feeling like study?
Precisely.
Yeah.
It turns learning into a much more engaging, enjoyable experience, less like a chore.
That's a brilliant way to make it part of your life.
Yeah.
And finally, there was a really important reminder, wasn't there, about fluency?
Yes. Fluency is not perfection, it's connection.
Fluency is connection. Say more about that.
The ultimate goal isn't necessarily to speak absolutely flawless English, like a grammar textbook.
Right.
It's to be able to communicate your thoughts, your ideas effectively, to build connections with other people through the language.
So the focus shifts from perfect grammar to just communicating.
Exactly. You don't need perfect grammar to express yourself truly. You just need enough to convey your meaning, to engage in meaningful conversations. Focus on clarity, getting your message across.
And the accuracy improves over time.
It naturally improves with more practice, more exposure. Definitely.
This has been such a helpful deep dive. Really practical stuff.
Good.
So just to quickly summarize, we've looked at some common hurdles you might face in your English learning journey. Feeling swamped by vocabulary,
Overload,
struggling with listening comprehension,
that tricky spoken stuff,
and lacking confidence when it comes time to speak.
the fear factor.
And we've explored some really practical, actionable strategies to help you navigate them. Things you can actually do.
And remember, learning English, like learning any real skill, it has its challenges. It just does.
Yeah.
But by adopting consistent habits, acknowledging your progress, those small wins, staying curious, and really focusing on connection through communication, you can absolutely keep making significant strides.
Great summary. So, as you move forward with your English studies, maybe just think about one specific area we've discussed today.
Just one.
Yeah. Maybe it's vocabulary, maybe listening, maybe speaking confidence. Identify just one small, manageable step you can take, maybe even today, to put one of these tips into action.
Just one small thing.
Exactly. And maybe think, what unexpected doors might open, or what surprising progress might you see just by focusing on that one small area?
Interesting question to ponder.
Give that some thought. And thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.